Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Arnis Luks here at the Crossroads, and I'd like to welcome my guests from Canada. Welcome, Robert Klinck.
Hi, Arnie. It's always good to see you.
And you
Hope we
too,
have a
Robert.
good discussion today.
I'm sure we will. And Wallace Klinck. Welcome, Wallace.
Hi, Arnie. Good to be with you again. It's a very nice today, beautiful day. Blue skies, but beautiful cloud formations. And
Long stringy ones, Walt. Long stringy cloud formations. That's what we've got here. These silly chemtrails. I mean, it doesn't stop.
No, these are natural, beautiful formations as nature makes them.
It's lovely to see them, actually. Yeah, fluffy clouds. It's always good.
Yeah,
that's right.
Clouds are very beautiful things, really.
All right, we're going to cut across to our news websites and have a look and discuss some things. This lady here, Jacinta Price, she's a deputy mayor for Alice Springs of the Northern Territory in Australia. She's a wonderful woman. She's a fighter. She's testy and tough, and she's out there. She's articulate, and she's writing, she's speaking, she's doing everything she can for her, not only her Aboriginal folk, but also for the people of Northern Territory. And she's decided to run for the Senate. And the major parties are not happy, Jan. They are not happy. And I'm thinking, good on her. Good on her for offering a viable alternative. I think it's so important that real alternatives are offered to the electorate. And she is one of those people, standout character, and fighting all the wrongs that government policy are doing against the Aboriginals and against the Northern Territorians. So I'm really pleased that she's up there having a go. Another article, same paper. This bloke is the Chief Health Officer, Health Minister for Victoria. And of course he's responsible for the current lockdown. Melbourne, Victoria is under a 7-day at the moment, but I believe it's going to be a 14-day at least lockdown. I read in an article this morning that of the past 450 days since COVID was announced, even before people were sick by our Prime Minister, Victoria has had something like 145 days of lockdown. So that's 1 in 3 days for the past year and a half or year and a quarter that Victoria has suffered under this man. Absolutely, in my view, criminal. Now let's just look at some statistics. This was from the 31st of May, which is only a day and a half behind us. And currently in Victoria, there is one person in the hospital. One person in hospital. There are no intensive care. One person in Victoria. And that whole state has been shut down for the previous 7 days. Across Australia, in intensive care, there is one person. New South Wales. But New South Wales does not have a lockdown going at the moment. So if you find these numbers difficult to swallow, you can find them. They're Australian Government Department of Health. Every day they update these charts. And it gives you some idea that the last time we had a peak was July, August. And this is only the testing peak. This is only the testing peak that they had July, August last year. When was it? July, August last year. That's 11 months ago we had a peak in COVID. Up till then it's hardly appreciable on these charts, reported cases. And of course the fatalities, look at the age group. Who are the people who are passing from COVID? From 70 through to 100, whatever. From 70 through to 100. Now when do people normally die? From 70 through to 100. So is there any change? I don't think there's much. What we've got is we've got people like this fella doing all sorts of damage to the Victorian economy. All sorts of damage. Should he be let loose, or should he be actually called to order? Should there be some sort of political mechanism where you can bring anyone on the public payroll, bring them to account, and let them stand to the public as to whether they're going to be endorsed for what they do, or whether they're going to get the bullet, as in get the sack? Should he continue on, or should he be sacked for incompetence? Really, he's blaming South Australia because, believe it or not, it may not show it in this article, but the actual history of the supposed virus coming from South Australia is that a door one door was left open for 18 seconds. This whole argument was that one door in South Australia was left open for 18 seconds, and all of a sudden 7 million people are locked down for not 7 days but possibly 14 days. This man here, that's the story he's telling you. If you can believe it. Honestly, it's absolutely incredible. Okay, financial review. Really just noise about the COVID, and of course the a bit about China, and of course the fact that what sort of support are these Victorians going to receive, and what does it mean in the long term that the governments are borrowing on the never never and giving people stuff now, and then later on generations have to pay it back. It really is very, very important to consider what's going on. The final one is, it looks like in Texas they're not happy with the illegal aliens coming in, and so they're actually doing a bit of work in that area. But I didn't see actually too much on Epoch Times that was challenging. Only some beautiful stories about this. In this case, a young mum who had taken the first abortion pill. She went to have an abortion and she changed her mind, and so she actually was able, through medical assistance, to reverse the effects of the abortion pill. And there's her 2 lovely sons there with her husband. And good on her. A confused girl who made a poor decision, and as soon as she'd made the decision, she pulled back and said, no, this is the wrong decision. And there's her son, the son that is alive, who's not dead, who's not part of a statistic on abortion. So to the girl's credit, good on her. Single mum, second child, and she was in a compromising situation, but she persevered, and look at her. What a beautiful woman, what a beautiful family. So to me, I think that's just absolutely wonderful when people stop listening and they start thinking. So important. Anyway, I'll open the floor up. You had a bit of a dropout just a minute ago, Robert. Hopefully you'll hold your comms line open. I'll give you the floor.
Yes, well, the woman who decided not to have an abortion, the young people are just subjected to a conditioning that results in a groupthink, and they don't think of the serious implications of what they're doing. But I'm sure that woman, having had these children, is very happy that she didn't abort them. I mean, having children changes your life in such a wonderful way. They are, as Jesus said, their angels are directed in their view directly toward God, and children are so special. They're a gift because they show us the nature of purity and innocence. And those are qualities that are seriously lacking in our world, unfortunately. This world is so degenerate. It's unbelievable. Anyway, you were talking about how the shutdown in Australia has been based on such thin evidence, no justification for it whatsoever. Well, these people who are making these projections, surely it's beyond belief that they can tell you that in 10 days or 2 weeks, they're going to be able to relax some regulation because it's going to have a precise effect on the spread of a virus through the community. This is so unbelievable. I can't comprehend how people could take it seriously. This is, it's as though these people had an understanding of where this virus was in the community at all times and its progress through the community, which is absolutely impossible. The thing is spreading, however it's spreading, and it can't be tracked because you don't know if you contract a virus, you don't know where you contracted it. Normally, you might have a suspicion and you might be completely wrong because you were with somebody who was sick, but you actually could pick the thing up elsewhere. So what is the point of the governments doing this tracking and tracing? It's just to harass people and to subject them to a more stringent form of control, and also to frighten people from getting in contact with others, because others are a source of contamination. That's the way we're supposed to regard each other now. We're not in a society of people we're supposed to be loving. We're in a society of people who are a threat to us. So it's a sad state of affairs as far as that goes. I'll leave it there and see if Wally has a comment.
No worries. Thank you for that, Robert. And yes, I will. I'll give it to you, Wally. Thank you.
Well, they have done their utmost to try and debase the attitude of humanity toward existence itself, toward other people. It's just incredible what has happened. The way humanity has been dragged down and down, down. And at one time, people seem to have some natural pride or natural concept of what it is really to be a human being, which extends far beyond some materialistic creature. We had the idea that human life contained the basis of aspirations, and aspirations that were elevating to humankind. It seems to me now that human beings have been, an effort has been made to teach them that they are simply nothing, basically nothing. And this is, it's the end of civilization as we know it, and in fact, because that's quite contrary to the whole basis of civilization building. It's really disgusting. And I had somebody encounter me early in the morning, not too long ago, and person said something, and I said, "Oops, what did you say?" And then she said, "You're not wearing a mask." I said, "No, I don't wear a mask unless I have to." And she said, "You're a danger. You're presenting a danger to all of us." I said, "You're in danger because of the people who are perpetrating this outrage. They are the persons that was a danger." And she just took off. But it just demonstrates how people can be, on the basis of their self-concern, basically selfishness, can be caused to obsess with the notion that other people are a danger to them if they're leading normal, free lives. Yeah. It's really quite astonishing. But it's the basis of creating dissension, division, hostility, and hatred. It is definitely revolutionary, this whole COVID thing. As a matter of fact, I talked to a medical person with considerable experience here just recently. For some reason, they were encouraging me to take the vaccine. I said, no, I will not be doing that. But at the same time, I mentioned some of the revolutionary side effects and benefits that are accruing to the revolutionaries because of the virus and the conditions that were being imposed upon society. And he did say, he said, there is the expression, never let a good opportunity go to waste. When I said that it's being used to promote revolutionary policy. So I was a bit surprised at that. Like, of course, naturally, totally concurred. But I don't know. It's really amazing. I don't know why human beings can be dehumanized so easily. They they're so easily instilled with fear that they're going to lose some kind of benefits that have accrued to them. And it's simply not representative of what human beings at the highest level would be expected to do, to think, to be. I've run into, even today, I've run into 2 occasions where people have offered to help me. They've offered to help me. Once was just at where you pay your parking fee, and I have never used the thing except once. I was just a little confused about it. And this lady came up and she said, "But what is your license number?" I said, "Well, it's..." And then she said, "No, just give it to me and I'll put it in for you." And then after that, she handed me the $2 to pay the fee. I said, "Well," I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have any change." She said, "That's fine." She said, "Don't worry about it." And then later on, I ran into another lady who met me in the concourse of the very large clinic, relatively new clinic that we have here. And she wanted to know if she could help me. I've been having trouble with my leg, and I guess it's a little bit obvious when I'm walking. And she asked me if she could help me. I said to her, I said, "You don't know what you're saying." If I were to say yes, you could get yourself into a very, very difficult situation. She said, "Oh, that's all right, I don't mind." And she simply was not interested in any kind of recompense or hardly even wanting thanks for what she'd done.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are absolutely generous. They're just bubbling over to try and treat you in a kind and generous way.
Yeah.
But every effort is being made to destroy that ethic. And somehow or another, we have to simply take the bull by the horns, as they say, and reverse the situation.
Yeah.
Restore humanity.
Thank you for that, Wally. Yeah. Yep. No, thank you for that. That's actually particularly well put. In the when the situations, I think, I'm just trying to think. Was it Chavez in South America? In the course of the particularly difficult imposition of communist policy over the people in that nation, Venezuela, I think it was, there were 2 paths that the people took. One was a path of self-interest and self-preservation, and the other was a path of actually building the community credit, what I call the social credit, the community cohesion, the love, the trust, the faith, one between the other within the community. And it is as stark as that. It is as obvious as that. You're either going to build it up or you're going to tear it down. And what we're seeing is that as a consequence of government policy, that health minister, his imposition of a lockdown with no one in intensive care, no one, 0 intensive care in the state of Victoria. They had one for a couple of days and they're out of intensive care. One they had, and they're out of intensive care, and there's possibly the same person still in hospital. Now let's put that realistic. There's 7 million people. Every time someone goes to hospital, goes in intensive care, are we going to shut down the entire state, lunch the economy, forcing small businesses to shutter their doors, close, never to open again, forcing homeowners to put their property on the market because they don't have an income, they can't maintain payments to keep things ticking over, they lose it, losing jobs, losing homes? Seriously? And then, of course, children who can't attend school because their parents are not essential services and not essential workers. And then, of course, you've got the huge disparity of a government worker performing a particular task, but private enterprise not allowed to perform the same task. That, of course, shows you the intention, the purpose behind the policy, which is to destroy the middle class, destroy the independence, the self-reliance of the people in the community. This is what's going on. And we've got to take the bull by the horns on this issue. We have to wake up. We have to wake up. You have to wake up. What are you doing about it? What are we doing about it? We've got to ask the question. That's why with such a damsel, and she is, honestly, in my view, she's an angel, Jacinta Price. What she's doing in the Northern Territory, standing up, being an honest person, an honest woman, proud of her Aboriginality, but proud of being Australian too. Proud of it. And why shouldn't she be? She's half Aboriginal, she's half, I think, Scots. So she's Celtic as well. And there it is, she's proud, and that's that fighting spirit that's within her. And she's out there, and of course the political party mechanism, they think it's all sewn up in Northern Territory. But what she's done by standing up is she's given the voters something to hang their vote on. She's given them a target, not the Liberal Labor, not the Conservative Labor duopoly, but she's actually given them a target. And I think that is just such a breath of fresh air. I think she's a wonderful woman, a wonderful human being. Good on her. Your thoughts, please, Robert Klinck.
Well, if she's an honest person, that's where you have to start, because politics is a corrupting business. And if you start out and you've got sliding ethics, queasy ethics, you're not going to last very successfully in that business from the standpoint of the population. So if this Jacinta is all you say, Arnie, that's a wonderful thing. I must say that the Antipodes seems to be easily panicked, because was it not true that also in New Zealand they had one alleged case of COVID, and the Prime Minister introduced all these ridiculous controls because she threw the whole country into a panic about one case? It's just a kind of madness. The case numbers are incomprehensible in any case. I don't know of any occasion in the past when anybody had the temerity to say how many new cases of flu there were from day to day. They wouldn't do that because it was a stupid proposition that you could understand how many new cases they were. But the stupidity of announcing the day-to-day new cases of COVID is never challenged. They're, at least in Canada, they're broadcast 24 hours a day on the radio. These stations think of nothing but. And how in the world did that come about? Is it the only subject of interest in our society? I think there must be some other things that deserve our attention as well. Anyway, why do people react in the way they do? I think there are so many who are insecure. And what is the basis of insecurity? Well, I'm sure in many cases it goes back to family conditions, so many instances of family breakdown and divorce, parents fighting because of money concerns in the 21st century. So there should be no serious money concerns for any individual unless they do something very foolish on their own initiative and they get themselves into some kind of hot water. But we are living in a society of material abundance and unlimited potential material abundance. I was at the home of a young Muslim in China a couple of years ago. And it was a very interesting experience because I was there with my son, and this fellow had set a huge bottle of whiskey. I mean, must have been, 200 ounces of alcohol there. And he said, "We're drinking that tonight." Well, as you know, Muslims aren't supposed to drink alcohol. There was another guy there who was a Kuwaiti, and he remonstrated and said, we're not drinking that. We're not allowed to drink it. And this other fellow, interestingly enough, said, I have read the Quran 5 times, and there's no prohibition on drinking alcohol. I found that interesting. But even more interesting was what this Kuwaiti fellow said. There are 4 million people in Kuwait. 1 million of them are Kuwaitis, and 3 million of them are foreigners who were brought in to serve the Kuwaitis, who have lots of money because of oil revenue. But every Kuwaiti citizen, every month, gets $1,500 in the form of a dividend from the government. They have wealth, and they see to it it's distributed. This was a revelation to me. There have been a few other instances of dividends. They had an oil dividend in Alaska at one point. Well, there's no reason, considering the potential for physical wealth that we have, that every citizen could not have the benefit of a regular dividend. And it should be a dividend that would be growing in proportion as the productivity of the economy grows. It's possible to do, and it's not going to destroy the morale of society. Not true. People will be choosing more interests, more tailored to themselves. They'll be doing all kinds of projects, improving society. I don't think, although some people allege, that if you give somebody something for nothing, they're going to become lazy and corrupt. We see certain people in our society being given something for nothing all the time. The politicians are expert at extracting something for nothing from the system. And, well, I won't defend their ethics.
I think you've argued against yourself there.
That's that point. But they're getting the something for nothing in a dishonest way. You're doing it surreptitiously. Whereas social creditors want to do it in an open way and a scientific way, based on the production that's available and the capacity that consumers have to buy it. It's obvious, is it not, that if consumers always had sufficient purchasing power to buy the production in the country, there would never be a recession, or there'd never be a depression. There couldn't be, because people would be able to buy their production, and there's never a shortage of production as long as there's demand for it. So this is the flaw in our system that has to be addressed. And until it is addressed, any other measure is futile, because in the end, the financial interests who have engineered this COVID crisis in order to strip everybody in the world of their property, they still retain control as long as they have the capacity to create money and give it to whomever they choose to administer it in an arbitrary fashion. Society is cooked. So unless we address this problem of who has control over the monetary resources of the country, we are just not going to make any progress in the way of getting out of the domination that we have suffered now for centuries. So this COVID situation it's a kind of a revolutionary opportunity, and the communists are exploiting it for that purpose. Well, if we can just make the point to people that the socialists, communists, and the financial interests are all in bed together because they all want the centralization of power, and they all want to end up being at the top of this hierarchical structure in power with no responsibility to the population. You know, what we're looking at now with this world globalism and Great Reset and so on, there is no participation in policy setting by the population. So we have to address this issue of getting monetary power and influence into the hands of the population in general. And it's not a huge challenge. It's sort of an elementary proposition how we could do it. First, we have to wrest the arbitrary credit creating power from the banking system. And then we can transfer that power increasingly to the population in general in the form of regular income supplements to enable them to enjoy fully the fruits of their economy.
There you go. Thank you for that, Robert. That's particularly well explained for anyone who's aware of the Douglas social credit proposal of the national dividend consumer price discount, and it's you've got to look at the whole thing in a sense from a philosophical point of view. Is government there? Is its legitimacy there just to rain roughshod over you? Because that's what you're experiencing. Is that the justification? Or is it to a point where you've got to actually pull back government? And in pulling back government, you actually regain some of your political power pursuing an economic amount of power. And that's what the dividend is. It's actually imparting an economic power into your hands. Your thoughts, please, Wallace Klinck.
That's exactly only what the politicians and the preferred elites in society are terrified of. They want to maintain control. And you can only maintain control over people if you maintain them in a condition of relative poverty or scarcity. You can't control someone if they have plenty. You can come along and say you have to do such and such, and people would just say, well, that's what you say, but that's not the way I feel about it. I'm not going to pay one bit of attention to you. And then they are disempowered, and they're afraid of losing that power. And that's the thing. I wrote a letter to an article to one of these sites, and I outlined the social credit position to a fairly large extent. And my goodness, this fellow writes in, and he's an engineer, been an engineer for decades. Oh, it's going to create a dreadful situation. People are going to be lazy. They're not going to be wanting to work. They won't produce. It will bring catastrophe. What an attitude toward human beings. I think in my experience, people who are relatively free of crushing economic want are usually more genuinely interested in doing something constructive with their lives. You know, if you're going to produce these things, if you're going to produce them, and you're not going to ensure that they flow to logical recipients who are consumers, then what, excuse the expression, what the hell are you doing producing this stuff in the first place? It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. And I'm not just trying to be, to put on a show here. I'm saying it seriously. I'm saying it absolutely seriously. Production was meant for a purpose, and that purpose is to be used by human beings. And if you're not going to make it available to human beings, then one has to ask the question, what is the purpose of the production? Well, the purpose of the production is to maintain a slave state. And that's what it is in a few short words. It's to maintain humanity in a condition of servitude and obedience. It is the worst expression of the exercise of power over other human beings. It's totally contrary to the Christian ethic, even though you find so-called professed Christians often express ideas of this nature. They don't know what they're talking about. I don't think that I think they're very selective about what they read in their scriptures, because the whole nature of Christianity is gift. gift, something given, not because of work, but because you have sought the kingdom, the love of God, the love of truth, and your reward is that all these things will be given to you. They will be given to you. You don't have to work for it. What did Christ say about filthy works? They minister to the conceits and pride of mankind. It's something for, these things are something for which we should recognize and we should accept with gratitude, with enormous gratitude from a kind and loving God who has made us and who knows our needs.
Beautifully put, Wally. Beautifully put. A kind and loving God who has made us and who knows our needs. I think that's absolutely beautiful. I look at the world, I look at the abundance, our what we produce around our home, just on the land that we've got available, is plenty. And we spend, well, I say we, this collective we, my wife would frown at me, I'm sure. My wife spends a good part of her time preparing food for a long-term storage with the bottling and preserving and things like that. And to me, it's lovely. It is honestly lovely, the drying of the fruit so that it's out of season, we can still enjoy it. And from what we produce just in our house block is plenty. It's abundant. And you think of it, where does all of it come from? Where does it? It actually comes from the ether. It comes out of thin air. When you grow an apple, it comes out of thin air. You didn't do anything other than plant the tree and nurture it. You just happened to provide the right environment. But the actual increase is a gift. And of course, it's
a supreme conceit on the part of man to think that he or she produces all that stuff.
Yeah. You actually cause it to grow. Yeah, you don't. What you do is you're a husband. You're actually nurturing or you're harnessing a power that's actually already there. And that's what you're doing.
Right.
You don't originate that power. You can't actually cause one hair of your head to turn white back to black. You can't do it. You might dye it, but the reality is the colour's there. And yes, the blue rinse, the grey hair, it's there. I didn't change the colour, that was life. But every hair on my head is numbered. And that to me shows the engagement of a loving God, a loving Father. Your thoughts and closing comments, please, Robert.
Well, the ingratitude on the part of many modern people is really astonishing. As Wally was pointing out, these ones who say, we would all be lazy if we got something for nothing. Although we know that there are many people in society who are getting something for nothing all the time, like all the free lunches you get when you're a business executive or a high-level politician. They don't pay for those things. There are so many things that are obviously free. I mean, the air we breathe, we don't have to earn that. And we don't even have to think about breathing it. It's just an automatic reaction on the part of our bodies. It keeps us alive. And the sunshine is free. The sunshine that enables the growing of comestibles. The amazing fecundity of nature, where you plant one grain and you get 100 coming out at the top in a few months. The multiplication of the produce in nature is an astounding thing. Plant a grain of corn and you end up with 200. You can plant those and multiply them if you want. And this is the case everywhere we look in nature. If you find a nut tree, it's just dropping nuts all over the place. And that all grew from one little seed. So the people who say that the nature of the economy in which we live is that everything has to be earned are not only not looking at things realistically, but also virtually spitting in the face of God, I think, because he made all this the way it works for our benefit, so we can live from it. And we ought to be making it as prosperous and as fecund as we possibly can for the general benefit of our society. And there's plenty of potential for that.
Fecund. What does fecund mean, Robert?
Fecund means that it is producing in abundance. Okay. Fecund. It's something that produces in abundance. Mm-hmm. Fecund, yes. So, we've got a problem in society because of the inculcation of insecurity and the sense of scarcity and so on. We've got people who are thinking in terms of what they can get out of any system. So they're not acting as responsible citizens, as contributory citizens. They're just trying to get the top paying job just because it gives them a lot of money. They're not getting work that is going to yield some genuine material or spiritual benefit to the community. So much turns on the love of money today. It's a demoralizing influence in our society. But I really think that psychology could be readily flipped if every time there was an advance in the economy, it paid a dividend to the members of the society. If they got that idea. Right now, they don't get the benefit. The benefit is often taken away by, well, some capitalist, I guess. I'm not criticizing capitalism necessarily, but I'm just saying that there are people who exploit the defenselessness and the helplessness of people in order to use them to enrich themselves. We can see all these multi-billionaires running around today as though they had no purpose in life except to amass endless amounts of financial wealth. But if the psychology was that every time an improvement was made in society, it would return a dividend to you and to your family, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? But that's exactly what I was talking about in my earlier comment about the distribution of a dividend that would be not arbitrary. It would be calculated on the basis of what is needed in order to get the full benefits of productivity over to the population. This is not any kind of guaranteed income or anything like that. A guaranteed income is just some arbitrary figure that somebody decides. It's got no organic connection to the economy. But the kind of variable dividend based on productivity and presumably continuously growing because productivity grows, but the distribution of income from that productivity diminishes because we're constantly working or trying to work smarter rather than working harder. Surely our objective should be to work smarter. And yet the socialists and the communists say we should just be working, 8 hours a day, 35 years of our lives. No connection in the whole thing to the need for the work at all. So that's what I'm saying. We're living in a mad society because of the insecurity that has been inculcated in people. And it's only because they haven't been getting a proper reward from their fantastic, technologically advanced economies. The technology ends up in us having a more precarious life rather than a more secure one. What kind of sense does that make? I mean, we should be arranging things differently.
Yeah, I'll get to you in a sec I'll get to
anything
you.
but an
Hang on, Wally.
association.
Start again. Wally?
The prize is the unearned increment of association, and it has been stolen from us by the way the financial system works in such a way as not to credit us for our capital assets.
Yeah.
In the price level.
That's right. That's right. It's been a game of filching the cultural inheritance. It has for the start, and of course the machine age, the technological evolution. It is an evolution, and from when man started to harness water and wind to turn the mills and things like that, and to sail the boats. When man was harnessing energy, and now it's got to the point, of course, with hydrocarbon energy and sophisticated, if you like, other forms of energy. It's got to the point where man really hardly has to work. All he has to do is control the machines that do actually all the major work. Otherwise, why would you have the machines? You've got to get a machine to dig a hole. Why would you have men with shovels digging a hole unless you just wanted to impose a hardship on them? So it's a cultural inheritance that's there. And if we see a mini excavator outside, it might weigh 1 or 2 or 3 ton, whatever, and then you can see a big excavator and it weighs 20 or 30 ton, and then you can see a monster excavator and it weighs 200 or 300 ton, and it's relative. The 200 or 300 ton, the amount of work that a machine like that does, and of course the dump trucks that go with it. And this is the sort of multiplication of energy, of technology that we're looking at. Not just the harnessing of wind or water, but it went on to steam energy, which of course was a conversion of heat, steam to drive turbines, to drive reciprocating pumps and locomotives and things like that. And then electrical energy for the Tesla, polyphase rotating magnetic field, a single phase or 3-phase electric motor to cause it to rotate, and of course efficiently rotate. So it was the efficiency levels went through the roof. Instead of just being heat, it became rotating magnetic field. So it actually had sort of a self-momentum going. If you put a big flywheel on it and things like that, they can do these things. I find it interesting because I deal with the natural world. I have my whole life. I've been working alongside my brother in my spare time building houses, but also oil and gas, and the advancement in technology in that industry was absolutely phenomenal across the 35, 40 years that I was involved. I also work with the natural world very close to husbandry, and that is with bees. Now, when I first started bees, the biggest issue with dealing with bees, one is you need a protective suit, you certainly do, but you actually need to learn how to manage bees. And as you're learning, you realise that there's a lot of things that you can do are more efficient. And there are better methods of cleaning your hives, of maintaining your bees, of looking for their health, looking for the signs, the telltales, managing your equipment. It's actually not a lot of work. Not a lot of work. The more you know, the less you actually have to do. And on the basis of that, I receive the inheritance of the harvest that the bees do for me. The bees are doing all the work. It's wonderful. If I actually adhere to the, if you like, the canon of how bees actually work particularly well. If I adhere to that canon, then the harvest is plentiful, the bees are healthy, they're happy, and they just produce, and I just manage them and try and keep them in that optimum state all the time. And right now we're in winter, so they're sort of shutting down for the winter, and I've made sure they've got plenty of stores to get them through to the bud burst and flowering in spring. So it's all part of that, understanding it, not being over eager to strip the asset, but rather just to work with it. And it's this relationship with the natural world of looking for that canon, looking for the way it works best. And this is where we've got to come back to how societies work best, the canon of how they work best. Now we're watching our culture, our civilization be destroyed through these revolutionary activities of our politicians, and of course the financial system is integral to the whole thing about deconstructing society, of collapsing the civilization so that the assets of the whole world can go into the hands of a few. That's the in the end objective. And all those that are left are slaves under the communist slave state. That's the end objective. That's what this Agenda 2030 of the Great Reset and all that is about. There is a better way. There is another way. There is an alternative, and that is looking to the canon of how things work best. How things work best. It really is a challenge for our time, and it's not going to come by locking ourselves away and hiding under the table and terrified of monsters that are not there. The biggest threat that, in my view, Victoria has got is its politicians and its health ministers. They're more dangerous than anything else. And this business that's going on, you've really seriously got to look at the ramifications of this mRNA vaccine. It's not a vaccine, it's an injection, an mRNA injection. You've got to seriously look at that and do your homework, because it may be a life-changing decision that you make in regard to that. It is so, so, so important. Thank you, Wally. Thank you, Robert, for today. It's been an interesting forum. Pleased to see that Jacinta Price is out there having a go. I think we need a few more Jacinta Prices out there, and I hope that Canada can produce their own Jacinta Price, and several of them.
I think she has a soul, whereas the politicians don't seem to have a soul.
She certainly does. She's got a spirit inside of her, and it's a feisty spirit, and it's out there to protect her people, and her people are not just Aboriginal. It's all of Australia. That's who she's out there fighting for. So God bless Jacinta Price. Thank you so much, Wally and Robert Klinck.